Mr. Speaker, I beg leave to move the second reading of the bill shortly entitled the Appropriation Act 2020-2019. Mr. Speaker, today, my team, Unity Administration, delivers more than an annual budget. Today, we present the next installment of our long-term plan to build a stronger and safer future for St. Kitts and Nevis. Our federation is heading in the right direction. Since 2015, our streets have become safer. Better and bigger homes are being built for our people. Our infrastructure is being upgraded. More persons, especially our women, have jobs. More tourists are visiting our shores, and our young people can look forward to more opportunities than ever before. Having repaid an inherited debt of $117 million to the IMF, I will highlight our plans for keeping our federation heading in the right direction. This next phase of our long-term plan will take us further on the prosperous path on which we embarked when this Team Unity government was elected in 2015. It is worth reflecting on some of what has been achieved in that short period of about 5 years, not 20 years. This includes the removal of VAT from all food items, educational supplies, and funeral expenses. The establishment of the Sugar Workers Restoration Fund and the payment of $17.5 million to 2,432 successful applicants comprising former sugar workers or their beneficiaries. When the sugar industry closed in 2005, a mere 968 persons benefited. Truth be told, it was too low a beneficiary group from an industry which at one point employed over 6,000 workers. We count among our successes too the redemption of 200 acres of land from the debt swap arrangement for use by the residents in Cayon, in Lodge, and Sandy Point as the first phase of that redemption effort. The monthly transfer of resources for budgetary support to the Nevis Island administration, the construction of a second cruise ship pier to support the tourism industry and the economy as a whole, the investment of approximately $71 million to upgrade the island main road. Way back in 1993, efforts were made to begin the island main road resurfacing. That was the last time, that was when the last exercise was completed. So we have come somewhat, 24 years after, to do what should have been done before us, to make our island main road of top quality. And to date, we have expended $71 million in the upgrading of that road. We have introduced the Poverty Alleviation Program with over 4,000 beneficiaries and a total payout of $22 million for the first 11 months of 2019. Implementation of the Hurricane Relief Program has supported over 2,000 households with repairs and renovations to their homes. We have reinstated the honorarium to over 1,000 government auxiliary employees. That honorarium had been denied them by the former administration. 4 consecutive years of payment of an extra month's salary to civil servants and employees at public entities on the island of Nevis and the island of St. Kitts. And of course, 5 years of positive economic growth. Clearly, while we have done quite a lot, We cannot undo 20 years of neglect in just 5 short years. There is much more we can do to build a stronger and safer life for all our people, especially our young people. It is fitting, therefore, that the 2020 budget is being presented under the theme, "Let's keep building a stronger and safer future for St. Kitts and Nevis." The plans I propose today will make a significant difference in the lives of our people. Team Unity is committed to building social cohesion together with economic and environmental resilience. Action in these areas will enable our country to mitigate the challenges that may emerge from any impending global and climatic events. Team Unity government will continue to make St. Kitts and Nevis more resilient to man-made and natural threats, and one of the best places to live, to work, and to do business in the world. Mr. Speaker, part of our long-term plan involves transitioning to a digital economy to strengthen our economy for the future. This will provide a modern approach to doing business and providing services. Team Unity is leading this charge because we believe it will make a difference, indeed a positive difference, in the lives of all of our people. The digital economy will present opportunities, especially for our young people, to improve education, healthcare, social services, and the delivery of almost all government services. The government is playing its role as facilitator and affirm its commitment to strengthening the policy and legal and regulatory frameworks to support this digital transformation process. A key component of our digital transformation is technological innovation. This will provide an avenue for building efficiencies in business operations, expanding entrepreneurship, job creation, and wealth generation. My government stands ready to partner with the private sector and civil society to ensure we continue to make giant strides to move our country towards the development of our digital economy. Team Unity is not just talking about transitioning to the digital economy. We are indeed doing it, and we are doing it properly. A comprehensive digital strategy and roadmap to guide the transformation in the public sector over the next 5 years has been completed, and we want to commend our Honorable Attorney General and his staff for so doing. We have initiated action to implement one of the core elements of the digital strategy. The government is currently working with Deloitte to explore the development of a new digitally based payment system for central government. This system would improve access by citizens and residents who have to transact business with the government by making it easier for them to make and receive payments. I want to take a brief look, Mr. Speaker, at recent international and regional economic developments, because we do not exist alone. Mr. Speaker, it would not be prudent for us to put plans in place without giving due consideration to the emerging global economic trends. Global economic activity has shown signs of weakening over the past few months. The IMF, in its latest edition of the World Economic Outlook, reported that global growth is projected to expand by 3% for 2019, its lowest level since the onset of the global financial and economic crisis during the period 2008 to 2009. According to the IMF, the advanced economies are expected to grow by 1.7% by the end of 2019. In particular, economic activity in the United States is projected to expand to 2.4% in 2019. Economic output in the UK and the Euro area is expected to slow to about 1.2%. The performance of the economy in the United Kingdom continues to be influenced by the withholding of investment due to the uncertainty regarding Brexit. The Euro area economy has been impacted by weak exports, particularly in Germany, the largest economy in the Eurozone. Economic output in the emerging and developing economies also show signs of slowing, with a projected economic growth of about 3.9% in 2019, down from 4.5% in 2018. In 2020, the global economy is expected to expand by 3.4%. In the context of the global economic reports, my government remains cautiously optimistic that the global economy will avert the myriad of possible downside risks that may emerge as a result of concerns related to rising geopolitical tension, Brexit to name one, trade wars to add another, and the reversal of international cooperation. Mr. Speaker, as the Caribbean region continued a period of rebuilding in the aftermath of Hurricanes Irma and Maria in 2017, the devastation was repeated at a scale we could never imagine when the Commonwealth of the Bahamas was impacted severely by the passage of Hurricane Dorian. Nonetheless, economic growth trends in the various countries of the CARICOM region vary considerably in 2019, from as high as 4.4% in Guyana to a contraction of 0.1% in Barbados. According to the IMF October 2019 estimates, the economic growth for CARICOM countries declined from 1.7% in 2018 to 1.4% in 2019. Growth in tourism-dependent economies is expected to remain robust in 2019 and 2020, supported by growth in the USA, the main tourist market for many countries in the Caribbean. With improved energy production and higher commodity prices, the commodity exporting countries are expected to see some modest recovery in growth, except for Guyana, where large discoveries of oil and the commencement of production in 2020 we should see a substantial boost to growth in Guyana. Closer to home, the economies of the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union recorded an expansion in real gross domestic product at market prices at about 3.8% in 2018, and this can be attributed primarily to expansions in gross value added in key sectors, including wholesale and retail, manufacturing, supported by a stabilization in construction activity, hotels and restaurants, real estate. As a group, it is expected that the currency union will grow by about 3.3% in 2019. Mr. Speaker, notwithstanding the unpredictability of the global environment, the economy of St. Kitts and Nevis has continued to record positive growth, with GDP expanding by 2.6% in 2018. And according to our statistics department, the economy is expected to grow by around 2.9% in 2019. This places St. Kitts and Nevis on a path to record the 5th consecutive year of positive growth since my team unity took office in February of 2015. The positive growth can be attributed to strong performances in sectors such as transportation, storage and communications, financial services, real estate, renting, and business services. The average rate of inflation, as measured by the Consumer Price Index, remained flat in the first half of 2019, in line with the relative stability of prices in the Service Index and the deceleration in prices levels in the non-food index of 2.6%. Notable is the increase in price levels in food and beverages index of 4.6%, signaling the volatility of commodity prices, particularly petroleum products, due to the ongoing conflicts in the Middle East, and we could well add Venezuela. Particular attention will be given to developments in the petroleum industry closer home in Guyana in order to explore options for ensuring a sustainable supply chain. Turning to the external account, Mr. Speaker, the statistical measurement that records the transactions and flows of capital between our Federation and the rest of the world. In 2018, the current account deficit narrowed by 34.1% to $195.4 million, or 9.4% of GDP at market prices. This movement can be attributed to the $30.6 million surplus on the goods and services account in 2018. Similarly, the services sector recorded an expansion in surplus by 21.7%, resulting in an increase to $884.6 million, or 42.7% of GDP. This output can be linked predominantly to the increase in travel receipts over the period of time. The capital account, which records monetary inflows into the Federation, recorded an expansion of capital inflows of 45.9%, increase in capital account to $174 million, or 8.4% of GDP. These inflows were, however, insufficient to cover the outflow on the current account, resulting in a net borrowing position and capital account of $21.4 million in 2018. The financial account recorded a significant growth in foreign direct investment, which more than doubled to $253.9 million when compared to $103.8 million recorded in 2017. This large investment is a signal that investors remain confident in the stewardship of the Team Unity administration. Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to report that due to our disciplined economic management, our fiscal operations for the year 2018 had yet again realized surpluses on all key fiscal indicators. We achieved a surplus of $306.3 million on recurrent account, an overall surplus of $59.3 million, and a primary surplus of $80.8 million were all recorded. Mr. Speaker, for the 2018 fiscal year, the government's recurrent revenue was $926.5 million. This was greater than the budgeted amount. The revenue from taxes was above target by 0.9%, and the amount collected in the previous year by 8.6%. When compared to the 2017 fiscal year, taxes collected on income, property and international trade and transactions were higher by 16.3%. So we want to thank the people, our employees at Inland Revenue, Customs, and all the major revenue collecting agencies of the government. Recurrent expenditure for 2018 amounted to $620.3 million. The higher outlay was partly reflected in transfers, which surpassed the budget by about 39%. The provision of budgetary support to the Nevis Island Administration and some state-owned enterprise, as well as the introduction for full year of the public assistance program were the main drivers behind the higher level of expenditure for transfers. The increase in public assistance was a direct consequence of the Team Unity's introduction of the Poverty Alleviation Program, a program that was implemented to provide well-needed financial support to low-income households on both St. Kitts and Nevis. The demand, of course, for economic citizenship in our country resulted in increased expenditure for background checks and other expenditures associated with the maintenance of a robust CBI program. Capital expenditure for 2018 was $252.6 million. This amount was above budget. Mr. Speaker, my Team Unity administration believes that a strong future comes from all people, particularly our young people, having more opportunities and more jobs. This is apparent from the execution of the public sector investment program in 2018, which included some major projects, some of which are continuing. Work, for example, continued on developments such as the upgrade of the Island Main Road, the road improvement project, the rehabilitation of the Old Road Bay, and the construction of the East Bus Terminal. The outturn of capital expenditure was also influenced by other deliberate actions of the government. I speak specifically to our hurricane relief program, for which $38.5 million was expended in 2018. This program provided assistance to a vast number of citizens whose properties were damaged by the 2017 hurricanes and who could ill afford to undertake the necessary repairs on their own. Truth be told, Mr. Speaker, this is one of the landmark deliverables of this administration. I recall being met by a lady from St. Paul's, and she called me and she thanked me. And when I inquired and as the conversation progressed, she said that she wanted me to know that she was praying for me, and I thought that was interesting. So we carried on the conversation. She said she was praying for me twice per day. So I asked her, knowing that one of those who prayed faithfully was Daniel, who prayed at least 3 times a day. I said, well, what happened to the other one? She said, well, I pray for you in the morning and the night, but lunchtime is when I don't have my food. I was contented with that. Twice per day, this lady in St. Paul's would pray for Prime Minister Harris because of the support we brought to her. She told me for all of her years of being in St. Paul's, of all of the hurricanes she had experienced, no one ever assisted her. I want to thank her for being so candid and upfront. And of course, I must encourage her to continue praying so that the Team Unity administration can deliver more. Mr. Speaker, importantly too, we made the promise, Mr. Speaker, that we would redeem lands which were taken under the Land for Debt Swap initiative. And in December 2018, we started that process. We paid $101 million to the Special Land Sales Company to buy back 200 acres of land that would allow for the natural expansion of the communities in Sandy Point, in Brighton, in Hermitage and Lodge. These were some areas where in 2012, the government had, as it were, appropriated the land as part of a scheme to, as it were, deal with the unmanageable and unsustainable debt. And we protested against it because the manner in which they were being appropriated to liquidate over $775 million of indebtedness to the bank meant that if you were to sell them at cost, no ordinary boy or girl would have been able to buy that. And we objected strongly to that. And we will continue to ensure that we move to redeem over time. As the fiscal health of the country improves, we shall bring more lands into the hands of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. A commitment made and a commitment we are doing. While we were told, Mr. Speaker, that the debt had gone poof, we were not told that a consequence of the accounting arrangement, Mr. Speaker, the country had to pay National Bank what was described then as a dividend guarantee in the region of $27 million. Debt gone. But by some smartness, in order to conceal the impact of National Bank puffing away $775 million from its book, the impact this will have on its operation, the smart idea of a dividend guarantee. Well, dividend goes to the shareholder. But here it was that the shareholder was paying to the bank, not the bank paying the shareholder, $25 million upwards to conceal the impact of that scheme on the books of National Bank. That is part of the challenges. That is part of the terrible inheritance that we are attempting to deal with, Mr. Speaker. So we will continue. And importantly, having done all these things, our accounts still remain in surplus. Importantly, record here that of all the expenditures we have undertaken in 2018 of over $200+ million, 98.6% of the funding was derived from revenue. We are paying our way, and we are not taking the country back into indebtedness. To be sure, you will hear later on that from the position of the central government, our plan is to reduce the central government indebtedness in another couple of years to about 19.5% of GDP. Taking the country out of debt, because we have witnessed how that strangled life in the country. We have witnessed the pain of an 85% increase in electricity tariffs. We have witnessed the pain of a 600% increase in water rates. We have witnessed the denial of our civil servants 3 years in a row, their increments. We have witnessed the running down, the lapidation of public infrastructure, which Minister Leiber, the member for number 1, now has to address. That is why we are ensuring that our fiscal house remains in good order. Capital and budgetary grants that were received in 2018 total $5.8 million, and the major donor was the Republic of China, Taiwan, which provided support for media operations and for social intervention program. We record our appreciation to the distinguished ambassador for the Republic of Taiwan, who is here, for that facilitation. And largely the initiative was to support Dr. Triton's involvement in the social intervention program here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Mr. Speaker, we are extremely grateful to the support we have had from our development partners in several areas. Mr. Speaker, construction has been one of the better performing subsectors, and according to our own statistics, the construction sector has contributed an average of 18.3% of GDP during the period 2015 to 2018. This stellar performance was a direct result of the financial support by my government for constructing the much-needed infrastructure and fostering the enabling environment which has attracted local, regional, and international investments. Again, everyone marveled at the rehabilitation of our Island Main Road. We are doing it now, 24 years after it was done. One generation, as it were, lost out in the improvement in that infrastructure. Couldn't be done then because the fiscal house was not in order. And now we are doing it. We will get to the hospital and we will get to the magistrate court you will go to in Crawley. We will get to that point. Mr. Speaker, could you protect me, Mr. Speaker? The works that have completed so far included the rehabilitation of 6.3 miles of roadway from Camps to Challengers going west and Connery to Keys going east. It also included the construction of drains, sidewalks, and slippers, as well for the realigning and widening of the main road to remove dangerous corners. Mr. Speaker, the local contractors benefited to the tune of $6 million. And what has been remarkable, in every project that we have done, we went to tender. Let the best entity get the opportunity to deliver value for money for the country. But equally, we ensure that when the beneficiary was an entity not part and parcel in a long way, not a citizen of St. Kitts and Nevis, we ensure that they had to subcontract work to our locals. When the Minister for Public Infrastructure comes, he will enumerate the long list of local contractors who participated in phase 1 and phase 2 of our road tendering process. Lachlan in Cairn, and you could go on and name them, from Old Road, etc., West Barstay, they all come and had an opportunity. We are now doing phase 2, Mr. Speaker. That too went through a tendering process, and this component includes the area of the Island Main Road from Keys to Challengers going via Deep Bay. No place is left behind. And the other day, as I did my walk to Sadler's, interacting with the people, they're telling us, by unity treating us goodbye. So, Prime Minister, look at the road. Look at the road. The road looks so different. But it's not only the roads, it is sidewalk that protects the elderly, that protects the children going to school, the pregnant lady. It is the enhancement of the physical infrastructure for the people in the country everywhere, Mr. Speaker, that we are talking about. And the people who are living here and the visitors are impressed by that work. At least they are seeing and they are feeling and they are driving. They know where the money for this country is going, investing in them, in their better quality of life. And they thank the government for doing so. Mr. Speaker, it's not just the road. It's also the fact that we have created a climate for more jobs by delivering to our commitment to our stakeholders in tourism. We could speak, Mr. Speaker, about the second cruise pier at Port Sante. The construction of the pier structure has been completed, and phase 2 of the project will facilitate finishing and upland works. Such works will include the construction of a second terminal building to provide additional facilities to better accommodate the increasing number of cruise passengers. And you must be amazed about the success of the tourism sector. What couldn't happen before our time now is happening so casually and so easily. In real way, we are doing miracles compared to what we have inherited. And the evidence abounds. For the second time in a row, the country has received over 1 million cruise passengers. Never before did it happen. Never before. Importantly, Mr. Speaker, significant development We have made significant progress in the completion of works on the runway and taxiway and the installation of new runway lighting at the Robert Llewellyn Bratcher International Airport. And our Minister of Public Infrastructure, who has been busy doing all of these things, will enumerate and elaborate and elucidate where necessary on some of these matters which we have highlighted here. Mr. Speaker, the administration is committed not just to delivering more homes, but the Minister of Housing likes to speak about bigger and better homes, the more spatial requirements that are attended to in the design of the bedroom, allowing the poor, ordinary people space to move around, space for all their items of furniture. That is what we are doing. Home construction certainly is a priority for the Team Unity administration. And when Minister Hamilton comes to speak on this, he will tell you all that we have done. An impressive record of providing housing solutions to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. Nearly 400 with respect to what we dub the Unity Housing Program. And then we have several other town houses which we have developed in Stapleton, in Connery, and of course, the condos at Wellington Road. Who would have thought condos, a condominium, Frederick, at Wellington Road in East Barstow? Who would have thought that something so marvelously beautiful would have arisen from that particular spot? And it is amazing that the picturesque nature of that spot was not captured before. It took a caring representative, the member for St. Christopher I, to say from the ashes something wonderful can rise again for the people of East Barstow. And so I want to commend you and to commend the Minister of Housing for partnering with you with respect to our housing program. This is something about which we are proud. From the HELP initiative, to the repair program, to the townhouses, meeting the needs of the human settlement sector has become a critical part of our good governance agenda. I also want to recognize that with respect to the Wellington condos and the Castle homes in Mansion, we have had the support of the Republic of Venezuela, and I want to commend the Charge who is here for the support of the government of the Republic of Venezuela for housing construction in St. Kitts and Nevis. We thank you and we record our appreciation for the $19 million that your government has invested for the Wellington condos. Mr. Speaker, the agricultural sector is indeed an important one for us if we want to build a strong future. The sector has its challenge. Less than optimal climatic conditions and land preparation issues impacted the sector in 2018, coming after the hurricanes Irma and Maria. And so we had a decline in 2018 in agriculture. Fast track to 2019, we have witnessed more encouraging results and signal that the sector is going to make a greater contribution to the economy. Several new initiatives, including in the livestock sector, have seen an increase in production by 51%. And indeed, one of the new initiatives which the minister will detail about will be with the goat breeding program that was placed in full operation in March of this year. This subsector has continued to record, at least up to the first half of 2019, expansion. The increase in the livestock subsector can be attributed to the increase in demand for products by hotels and, of course, residents. We want to encourage all of us to buy local and eat local as often as is possible. Some of the most successful countries of the world have invested heavily in agriculture and have protected their agriculture. Indeed, the most successful nation in the world by economic standards is the United States of America. Who protects the agriculture more than the US of A? Who gives more grant, more subsidies? Just the other day, with the war between China and the US of A, and the impact upon the farmers in America, we heard Trump giving billions of dollars to the agricultural sector. A function of their might. Because elsewhere they would tell you that the WTO say you can't do that. You can't subsidize. It is part of the uncertainty of the world in which we live, where might still goes a long way. So we want to give the fullest support. And later on in this presentation, we will outline some specific kinds of intervention that we will make to help strengthen the agricultural sector. Mr. Speaker, we take the tourism product seriously. And when Minister Grant comes to speak, he will tell you more about all the accolades we have had in this sector, our ranking in global publications, Mr. Speaker. We have ensured by the introduction of the so-called tourism constables that we are able to increase the safety and the peace of mind of visitors who are attracted in particular to Port Zante, the St. George's Anglican Church and Independence Square. So we have a group of young ladies and men who have been well prepared, well sensitized to be able to add to the safety and security in these major touristic sites. We are not taking anything for granted, Mr. Speaker, and we will continue to invest in that regard. Mr. Speaker, our global status as a premier destination has translated into the continued expansion in airlift, resulting in increased stayover arrivals. During the first 6 months of 2019, stayover arrivals expanded by 9.4% when compared to 2018. North America remains our largest source market, recorded an increase in air arrivals of about 9.9% when both periods were compared. This can be attributed to the expanded capacity into the Federation through increased non-stop service by United and American Airlines during the peak travel period. The partnership with American Airlines continues to derive tangible benefits, which resulted in the launch of a non-stop service from Dallas-Fort Worth for the first time in our history. We are having a lot of firsts, pleasant firsts in the tourism sector, and we want to record that. The flight schedule was undertaken during the summer from May 25th to August 17th of this year. In addition, the airline will be commencing its second weekly non-stop flight from New York JFK International Airport to RLB International Airport on Wednesdays, starting very soon. How soon? On Wednesday, the 18th of December, 2019. Again, we want to commend our tourism officials for that important breakthrough. Mr. Speaker, the performance of the cruise sector is a source of great joy. We are elated that for 2 consecutive cruise seasons, St. Kitts and Nevis has exceeded the 1 million cruise passenger milestone, maintaining our marquee port status. During the 2018 to 2019 cruise season, we recorded a total of 7 inaugural cruise calls, including the Symphony of the Seas, the world's largest cruise ship. Is that so, Minister Grant? Imagine for a moment, Mr. Speaker, the smallest country in the hemisphere providing hospitality and facilities to accommodate the largest cruise ship in the world. Significant. Just imagine for a moment the smallest country in the hemisphere offering port facilities to the largest cruise ship in the world. Something wonderful is happening in our country. And when we would have completed our cruise ship, we will have we will be able to host up to 3 Oasis-class ships at Port Zante simultaneously, while significantly improving the arrival experience of passengers. The completion of the new arrival terminal, including a taxi dispatch area, will further enhance Port Zante as cruise travelers follow their heart inland. The yachting sector is also recording significant growth, and I gather there was an expansion of calls by 92% when the first 6 months of 2019 were compared to the same period in 2018. The Tourism Authority has plans to improve the benefits of yachting to the sector. And indeed, they intend to roll out a new marketing strategy early next year called Yachting Time. The aim here is to bring awareness to the related activities and opportunities for growth within this critically important sector. Mr. Speaker, information technology is a key plank, and I spent quite a bit of time in my opening remarks speaking to the digital economy, how we want to fast track that. But we are not doing it in an ad hoc way. So we have a strategy developed by the professionals that would guide our effort there. We see the high officials from the cable company and the flow, and we really want to commend them for their contribution which they made to our national consultation on the economy, and for their commitment to ensure that St. Kitts and Nevis continues as a federation to provide leadership in this particular area. A broadband strategy is currently being developed with technical assistance from the International Telecommunications Union and the Commonwealth Telecommunications Organization. This strategy will drive the use of ICTs in the education curriculum and the widespread use of e-government services, including e-licensing, e-payments. That is what we were talking about earlier when we talk about making it easier for people to do business with the government. We, as it were, transforming the payment system. The digital crime management and traffic management systems. So if you are driving without license, the police can, with one tick on their phone, determine who is that person driving without a license. All that is part of the digital crime management and traffic management system. The expansion of our CCTV program, which aims to make the streets and communities of St. Kitts and Nevis safer. All those are part of this broad strategy for digitalization or developing the digital economy. And indeed, the ICT is a critical part of that one. The Attorney General, of course, fond of the work of the National ICT Center, which we reopened in 2018. There is what he described as the Innovation Hub, which is the Department of Technology's training unit within the center. And that has been doing a lot of very excellent interventions. The annual Future Skills Summer Camp, which targets participants aged 10 to 15, provides lessons in 3D printing, augmented reality, and robotics. This year, we had a group of young people who went all the way to Dubai to participate in competition in relation to robotics. So this is an area in which we are seeing a plan We have a strategy, and we are building it out in an organized way, Mr. Speaker. The Attorney General has a lot of passion for technology, and so when he speaks, he will speak more with respect to this particular matter. Turning to energy and water, Mr. Speaker, the development of the energy and water sectors are crucial to our long-term plan to deliver a stronger and safer future. In September 2019, Skelec signed an agreement with Le Clanche SA, one of the world's leading energy storage companies based in Switzerland. This agreement will facilitate the construction of the largest solar generation and energy storage project ever to be built in the Caribbean. So when we would have finished that, St. Kitts and Nevis would have led the way in terms of alternative energy. And alternative energy has been in spin for a long while. Just like the cruise ship that had been announced way back in 2000, but never happened. Right now then, we are seeing that the Team Unity government is doing what is necessary to turn the curve in terms of the use of fossil fuel and, of course, the introduction in a real way of alternative energy. It is also envisaged, Mr. Speaker, that once the project is operational, we will be able to improve the long-term financial viability of Skelec. In other words, we want Skelec to operate efficiently. We want to ensure that the entities of the states are fiscally responsible and prudent in the administration so that we do not go back from whence we came in terms of our high unacceptable level of indebtedness. We took the country for the first time in its independence history, begging and borrowing at the IMF door. The 35.6 megawatt solar energy plant and the 44.2 megawatt hour battery storage facility will be built out on 100 acres of groundland located in the Bastille Valley under a lease arrangement. The plant will be constructed close to Skelec Power Station to facilitate the cost-effective transfer of energy. A 20-year power purchase agreement will be established between the two entities. Mr. Speaker, in my last budget, I reported that we were about to proceed with some city-sponsored interventions in the alternative energy area. One critical aspect of this was to pursue energy audits at selected government properties, both on St. Kitts and on Nevis. Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to report that we are advancing that particular project as it relates to street lighting, and that we have received a complete shipment of 10,017 luminaires in 2 shipments which arrived in September and October this year. As a result of this, Nevlec in Nevis is now in possession of 4,661 LED street lights to advance their replacement plan. And similarly, Skelec has 5,356 LED luminaires. This again will help in the replacing of the street lights to allow for better and safer energy being produced here. It is anticipated that the replacement of the high-pressure sodium and mercury lighting will reduce our energy consumption for street lighting by a significant 30%, thereby decreasing the government's energy bill. It will also enhance our safety and the viability, of course, of our natural environment. So we are moving, Mr. Speaker, in a good way in the sphere of alternative energy. Mr. Speaker, we are also moving forward in a number of other areas. Last year we reported that the Ministry of Sustainable Development had developed a concept note as a first step in our effort to bring future support with respect to the water sector. The concept note, developed in collaboration with the CDB, was aptly named Building Resiliency in the Water Supply in St. Kitts and Nevis. The vital areas that will be addressed by the project include the development of a reliable and resilient water supply infrastructure, the enhancement of the organizational capacity of water supply service providers for effective and efficient management, and fostering and enabling legal, regulatory, and institutional environment for the efficient performance of water service providers. We intend to submit this project for consideration, Mr. Speaker, to the Global Climate Fund. If successful, it will be our first successful engagement in seeking financing with respect to the climate change fund that has been established. In 2020, we will continue to work with the CDB to complete the process and bring us closer to transformational change in the water sector. Mr. Speaker, turning now to social development, it is well known that St. Kitts and Nevis leads with respect to issues relating to the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. We were among the first in the Caribbean to have adopted that convention in 1990, within a year of that convention becoming effective at the UN. Our leadership as a nation in advancing the rights of our children resulted in the Federation being selected to partner with UNICEF to undertake a National Children's Summit during July 23rd to 24th to be exact, this year. This important exchange, Mr. Speaker, that took place will be used to inform the development of programs and projects to further strengthen the existing mechanisms and create new opportunities to ensure that the four guiding principles of the Convention on the Rights of the Child remain foremost in the development agenda of St. Kitts and Nevis. Mr. Speaker, too, we are very pleased, and we did mention this earlier, about the success of our poverty alleviation program. In the run-up to the 2014 election, too many people were suffering. In the run-up to the elections, as we went through the alleyways and byways, too many people said that life had too little meaning, that we were merely eking out a living. And my team Unity movement determined to address that. It was no secret. It wasn't a just hurriedly thought out program. It is something which we committed to the people way back in 2013, 2014, and carried it as a signal initiative of this government. So when you flip the Unity Manifesto, it is one of about 8 or 9 things which we said will be the priority agenda of the Team Unity administration. And we have introduced this, Mr. Speaker, giving, as it were, a top-up to our people, in particular our woman-headed household, to ease the burden and to make their lives much more meaningful. We want to commend, Mr. Speaker, all the various departments, the Accountant General's Department, the Ministry of Social Development, the Ministry of Social Development, and the Ministry of Sustainable Development that have worked collaboratively to ensure we have had a seamless build-out of this program, not just on the island of St. Kitts, but also on the island of Nevis. And we want also to commend the Statistics Department over in Nevis, and of course the Finance Ministry for collaboration in that regard. And another manifesto promise that we have fulfilled. Mr. Speaker, I want to turn briefly to skills development and human capital expansion. There's a lot of good things happening in this particular area, Mr. Speaker. And the Deputy Prime Minister, of course, and Minister of Education will have much to say when he presents tomorrow. Mr. Speaker, we have provided strategic leadership in education, and our successes from early childhood development through to primary and secondary education to tertiary education is well recognized. The CDB, Mr. Speaker, has financed a TVET program that will transform our learning spaces, infuse ICT in our curriculum. It will result in the construction of ICT labs, TVET multiple purpose workshops, both on St. Kitts and on Nevis. We are indeed better preparing all our people, including those on step, for the world of work. Our TVET Council will soon be able to issue Caribbean vocational qualifications, CVQs. This is critical if the nationals of St. Kitts and Nevis are to play an effective role in the regional initiatives. The free movement program, for example, will require that we have our persons certified as barberers, as engineers, whatever services they are engaged in. And we will, right here in St. Kitts, in the near future, be able to do so once our TVET Council receives its accreditation. So real leadership is being brought to the education, Mr. Speaker, and we are implementing our policies from a clear strategy, not the ad hoc, topsy-turvy approach to education and training that we inherited. It was amazing, that we had over 4,000 persons involved in this PEP program, as it was called then. And when the external parties came in to look at what was happening, they were amazed. Over 4,000 persons involved in a program needed really to have their skills enhanced, but less than 150, and the Deputy Prime Minister will get the figure for me, less than 150 were exposed to training. And even when the 150 persons were exposed to some form of training, TVET-type training, we learned that the callous regard for our people coming from the Ministry of Education, Mr. Speaker, way back then, that they adopted a package from Jamaica that had long outlived its useful life. The package they adopted from the HEART program in Jamaica was no longer in vogue. And we were told we had a bright white man as Minister of Education. But the brightest man brought the worst program to educate and uplift 4,000 people, less than 150 exposed to any form of training. And the training was long outdated. That is why in this project, Mr. Speaker, we have brought in the experts from the CDB doing consultancy, and we are attempting right here in our country to get our TVET Council accredited so that they can deliver the right kind of training to our people in St. Kitts and Nevis. There's a better way of doing things, and it is this better way that we are pursuing at this particular moment in time. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, sir, turning to the matter of health care, Mr. Speaker, our future will be stronger and safer if our population is healthy. Indeed, way back, we developed the mantra that the wealth of the nation is determined by the health of the nation. Mr. Speaker, we continue to build on the gains that we have made so far in the area of non-communicable diseases, NCDs. And I want to thank the health leadership, or the leadership in the Ministry of Health, our Senator, our Minister of Health, member for St. Christopher 8, Permanent Secretary, and all the other technicians for the successes and for the work they have done so far in the area of NCDs. Clearly, the NCD challenge is a lifestyle challenge. How do we take better care of ourselves? By paying regard to what we eat, what we drink, and how often we go walking, or bicycling, or swimming, or any other form of physical activity, to each his own in that regard. Those are the risk factors. So the Ministry of Health has introduced the St. Kitts Nevis moves here, and there's a Nevis chapter which was also launched in Nevis to encourage people to eat well, to encourage people to be more disciplined, Mr. Speaker. And we understand that these lifetime issues will not happen overnight. It is the perseverance factor. It is the question of discipline, Mr. Speaker, that we have to get in our people. Mr. Speaker, so we are moving in the right direction, and we are bringing into the St. Kitts Nevis moves all the various stakeholder groups to assist us in sending that important message. I want also to record the support we have had from the Taiwanese with our kidney program and the provisioning of a diabetes educator who works meticulously with our citizens here who have these particular ailments. Mr. Speaker, another important initiative that is coming from the Ministry of Health is what has been described as the STEP survey. During this assessment, a sample of about 4,300 households across the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis will be randomly selected, and one person in the age range from 18 to 69 in each home will be allowed to participate in the survey. What is this survey about? The assessment will seek to determine the current levels of chronic disease risk factors in the Federation, predict future caseloads of chronic diseases, and help health services plan and implement public health interventions to prevent chronic disease epidemics. And we could go on and on in relation to that. The challenge, importantly, and the major challenge to our region is really NCDs. I gather around the region, they account, certainly in St. Kitts, Minister of Health would help me, they account for 83% of all deaths. Non-communicable diseases. What are some of them? The cancers, whether of breast or other parts of the body. We are talking about chronic diabetes and associated conditions. 83% of all deaths in the country are attributed to NCDs. So we have to be better at that. And that is why we have been investing in the health infrastructure. That is why this administration brought an oncology wing into operation in St. Kitts to ensure that those who are suffering from cancers at least have the care and support that they need in the first instance. But it's not just the communicable diseases. The HIV/AIDS is also an important challenge. And in fact, for a long period of time, the attention of health professionals had been on the area of communicable diseases. Until around, I think it was 2007, thanks to the director of PAHO, I think George Aline, who had done the analysis and had brought this thinking that we now had to focus on NCDs, but without losing sight of the continuing challenge of communicable diseases. The strategy now is encapsulated in the 90-90-90 initiative. What does these three 90s mean? They mean that we want 90% of all people living with HIV to know their status. We want 90% of all those with HIV infection to receive sustained antiretroviral therapy. And it means that we want 90% of those who are receiving antiretroviral therapy to have viral suppression. In other words, the virus is suppressed in the body, which minimizes the opportunity for transmission. And this is something we have to work on diligently and consistently. In this regard, the work of our health promotion unit becomes very critical. I want to point to one of our outstanding success, because we are talking here about the suppression of viral infection. In 2000, was it 18 or 17? 17. Seems you know what I will say, because he gave me the correct year. At a function over at the Marriott, St. Kitts and Nevis were among the few countries that received certification that they had now reached a position where mother-to-child transmission of HIV had been eliminated. Significant. St. Kitts and Nevis became the first of the English-speaking Caribbean, second after Cuba in the world. We commend Cuba for its leadership in research and in medical interventions. But here it was that the smallest country in the hemisphere was providing leadership. And so we commend all those who had a role in that particular achievement. That is something of which we must be proud. That is something one should have patriotism. That is something one should have no other passport but the passport of St. Kitts and Nevis and no of Mustoman. You must feel a sense of pride that my country is leading in medicinal transformation around the world. When you can't have that sense of feeling, you have another passport and you could well be a diplomat of another country. That is what will happen, Mr. Speaker. The other area of healthcare in which we are focused, Mr. Speaker, is a human papilloma virus, a group of viruses that are extremely common worldwide. And we have started this intervention in our school system, Mr. Speaker, because, again, if this is not treated, we would not be able to mitigate the incidence of cancer of the reproductive tract. And so we are starting very early with immunization in this regard. Mr. Speaker, the other major plank of the health interventions going forward would be health disaster management plan. How do we really respond to the challenges for health care in the event of something happening, albeit a hurricane, albeit an earthquake, any man-made disaster? And so we are developing and finalizing our health disaster management program. Mr. Speaker, the government of today remains steadfast in its commitment to deliver universal health coverage. This is a major initiative. This will mean that the lady in St. Paul's who is suffering, who needs health care, who has no one to turn to for support, now can rely, when we introduce this particular coverage, upon a public health response mechanism to provide health care. Too many of our people everywhere, in St. Paul's, in Boardwalk, in Charlestown, all over the country, find themselves in circumstances where, when the adversity of health and the impairment of their health comes, there's not enough money set aside for them to be able to do it. Too many of our people have not been exposed to insurance, health insurance. Too many of our workplaces have not paid attention to that. So moving forward, the Ministry of Labor and the government as a whole will be encouraging all employers and St. Kitts and Nevis to make health care considerations part of their human resource development platform. The Honorable Jean Hamilton is providing leadership on the issue of the national health coverage, and when he speaks, he will bring us more information respecting that particular matter. And of course, we plan next year to expedite the forward march with respect to this program, and we have to have some further discussion with the Chamber of Industry and Commerce and civil society. Importantly, the Chamber is represented on the national committee that we have set up to deal with this particular matter. One of the other significant achievements is really the reconstruction of the Mary Charles Hospital in Molyneux. In a manner of speaking, the former Minister of Health and member for number 2 allowed the hospital to go to the doors, dilapidation, doors hanging off. And you would imagine whether or not she ever paid a visit there. The hospital had become dysfunctional, and it was in about February or so, the roof fell in. We had to, as it were, we had to move all the persons into the hospital at Draeney. We have been able, Mr. Speaker, to bring a brand new Mary Charles Hospital, offering services required by the people, served from afar down, I think, as Parsons to Canada at the other extreme of the district, Mr. Speaker. District 5, if I'm not mistaken. And we are offering a range of services, including dental care. I was surprised the other day when the CMO reported that we have had over 3,000 plus cases of persons who have attended the dental clinic there since it was open. And they did a range of dental services, including extraction, including root canal, including cleaning. So that the service then was in high demand. And so I'm happy that we have been able to do this. Mr. Speaker, turning to the matter of public safety and security, what could we say, Mr. Speaker? Perhaps we could invite the Calypso Socrates to do that popular song about rat-a-tat and the crime situation in the country. How things have changed. It was a long journey for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis to get to where we are at, where we are experiencing on the island of Nevis and on the island of St. Kitts peace and quiet like never before. Peace and quiet which we want to sustain. And it has come from a broad view of what the national security apparatus required to be able to deliver, and the principal mandate not just of the Ministry of National Security, but of the government. The cardinal function of the government is to keep the people safe. Outside of that is anarchy. For the state to be able to do that, we have to make the strategic interventions like we have done in the CCTV programs, We brought in psychological support to our law enforcement officers because we recognized they were as much pressured as the rest of the society. So often being called out at night, at morning, at daytime to face armed gunmen. So often they were not able to get enough time to adequately investigate one homicide before another one happened. And we are happy now, Mr. Speaker, that as part of our broad program, comprehensive as it is, at long last, we are seeing significant reduction in homicides in the country. Indeed, since March 2019, we have not had one gang-related homicide in our country. We have to not do it. Not one. A significant achievement. That means well for every citizen and resident in our country. And we are proud that the government stayed the course. We remain committed to do all in our power to ensure that every citizen and every visitor and every national, every resident must be able to walk our street and feel safe, whether it is in McKnight or in Depe or Phillips or Old Road. Safety is critical if we are to sustain the prosperity agenda. Mr. Speaker, not only are the homicides now down, and we are down to about, I think, 48% relative to last year, but overall, all major crimes in the country are down significantly. And that is a significant achievement for this administration. But beyond this administration, it is for the country. Gone are the days when people were scared to go on the popular strip. Gone are the days when after certain hours people would not congregate on 4th Street. A new peace initiative is really bringing a sense of confidence to the people and the freedom, the enlargement of the freedom of the people. I really want to commend Commissioner Brandy for the stability of his leadership at this particular moment in time. He's over 40 plus years, given the opportunity to lead the police force, and the strength and the respect has allowed him to change the face of crime fighting in the country. I want to thank all of our partners, those like the Republic of China who supported our CCTV program. We want to thank all other partners, the Chamber of Industry and Commerce, who at a very important time provided support in terms of vehicles and so on, Ross University, and all those who have partnered with us. We even want to record our appreciation to Dr. Triton, who came and began to engage our young people in the schools. We want to thank Permanent Secretary Mr. Petty, who have developed what is now the largest youth organization in the country, our National Explorers Group of 789 young people. And we intend to take it to over 2,000 year to come. What we were doing really was to ensure that we contain the involvement of our young people in risky behaviors, disrespectful behaviors, help them to engender a good attitude to law enforcement by working with our community officers. And so in our budget, we basically have provided for that support. Of course, it has always been a partnership with the Defense Force, with the fire and rescue, with immigration. And so I want to thank all the leaders for their support for this peace initiative and our provision of an alternative lifestyle pathway to our young people and in particular our vulnerable people. We are doing some excellent interventions in our prisons, preparing the inmates there, enhancing their skills, working with them. Some of them are going to leave our prisons with 8, 9, and perhaps 10 CXCs. We want the Chamber of Industry, the private sector generally, to be part of the new dispensation of rendering support, because they deserve their second chance. In fact, they deserve, like all of us, many chances. Somewhere it is written, how many times must I forgive thee? We have some pastors here, and I may say it wrong, but I recognize somewhere something like 70 times 7.
You're going good.
Going good.
Yes.
Thanks be to God. So apply that principle of forgiveness. Apply that principle of bringing our limited human capital into productive use. And you ask, how could anybody of conscience, how could any patriot oppose the Alternative Pathway Initiative? How could you oppose when we are trying to save life and we can't put a price on life? How could you not do all that you can to prevent the young men and young women from dying? Too many of them, Mr. Speaker, too many of them have had their share of pain, of trauma. Too many mothers are still in sadness over the loss of their son at a tender age. And it need not have happened. Had we been more aggressive in the fight against crime in the country, had we been as inclusive as we ought to be, have we tried new things rather than the same old, so many lives could have been spared. Our country needs every citizen and every resident into productive action. Mr. Speaker, the budget this year speaks to that and provides support for the continuation of our peace initiative and provides support for the build-out of our prison rehabilitation program and provides support for the elevation of our fire services that had been neglected. And in 2020, we would advance the forward move of the national security agenda. So I thank all who have been part of the success so far, including, of course, the judiciary. And when the Attorney General comes in, because all of these are linked, when we added a new judge to the St. Kitts benches here, it was to ensure that matters to do with crime were given priority, because justice delayed, we are told, was justice denied. And that has helped to also bring the deterrent impact into our law enforcement strategies. Mr. Speaker, in this debate, we will speak about the financial services, the implication for the OECD engagement with us, and the Financial Action Task Force that we have to go into. We will speak to matters to do with the Code of Conduct and the BEPS minimum standards that are to be implemented by my government, and the deadline that has been placed for the government to get the legislative frame at least right to be able to avoid blacklisting. And I want to commend the staff, the technical team on the island of Nevis and on the island of St. Kitts for coming together, bringing all their talent and experiences to bear to ensure that St. Kitts and Nevis can respond in a timely way. We will perhaps have to come back to the Parliament before the end of the year, as was necessary last year, to deal with some matters that have been pressed upon us for action by these international bodies with respect to the financial marketplace. Of course, we are a responsible member of that community, and although the demands are onerous, time-consuming, and they make significant demands on our limited resources, we have to comply because the reputation of our country is too important for us to allow that to slip. Mr. Speaker, I want quickly to turn to the medium-term fiscal outlook for St. Kitts and Nevis. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as we keep building a stronger, better, and safer future, we envisage a solid fiscal and debt performance, as well as positive economic growth over the medium term. And a review of the fiscal performance suggests that by the end of 2019, the recurrent account will be in surplus, and we will amass recurrent revenue of $994.3 million. Our recurrent expenditure is projected to reach $645.5 million. The expected increase in the expenditure reflects my government decision to reward all civil servants, auxiliary workers, and pensioners, both in St. Kitts and Nevis, with the payment of a bonus salary for the fourth consecutive year. Additionally, of course, the extra costs associated with our poverty alleviation program have all contributed to the higher recurrent expenditure. Capital and budgetary grants are projected to amount to about $18.1 million by the end of the year. Mr. Speaker, the government fiscal strategy for the medium term has two main objectives. Firstly, to ensure the sustainability of the public finances by maintaining fiscal surpluses, and secondly, to reduce central government's debt by 19.5% of GDP by 2020. With respect to the period 2020-2022, that is the 3-year period, it is anticipated that the fiscal operations of the government would result, on average, in a recurrent account surplus of about $152.4 million, an overall surplus of $32.8 million, and a primary surplus of $51.6 million. Just to put in perspective, the recurrent surplus is the difference between our recurrent expenditure and our recurrent revenues. And in terms of our fiscal management, we always want to have a surplus and a recurrent account which will go to help offset the costs of our capital projects. And when we combine those two, we end up with the overall surplus. The primary surplus is an indicator of how much resources we have to meet our indebtedness. Those three indicators are critical in terms of the analysis of any country. And I'm happy to report that we are doing extremely well on those important indicators. Mr. Speaker, then I want to move to look at the way forward. The Ministry of Sustainable Development has indicated that our economy will grow at around 2.9% in 2019, and over the medium term, we will have growth of 3.6%. This positive trend in economic growth will be driven by continued developments in construction, in tourism, the distributive trade, and transportation sectors. Mr. Speaker, public administration sector will also have impact on the overall growth. the construction activity will be the largest contributor, and in the medium term, we are expecting that construction activity will increase year on year on average by 3.1% over the medium term. Mr. Speaker, the performance of the construction sector will be enhanced by ongoing investment in public infrastructure, and we have named some of them, but also in the private sector. We are looking forward to the build-out of Phase 2 of the Tilloff Hotel and Phase 2 of Ramada Resort and other entities, such as Era Development, which recently had the Saturning ceremony in Brighton, Keyon. We also have Seaview that is going to be completing Phase 1 in the near future. And we can see, even in passing, the substantial progress that is being made by Hillsborough residences. Mr. Speaker, the public sector debt, Mr. Speaker, our strong economic management is being noticed. Recently, we were applauded by the ECCB for being the first independent country in the currency union to achieve a 60% debt to GDP benchmark. We did so 12 years ahead of the target date. With discipline and proper debt management, this was realized well ahead of the stipulated 2030 timeframe by the central bank. Our mandate has been and continues to be to reduce the stock of debt to a level that could be sustained by our small, open economy. And in this regard, we have been doing very well. At the end of 2018 fiscal year, the total public sector debt was recorded at 57.3% of GDP. So we continue to be under the target for 2030 of 60%. And though we may have some vagaries in terms of debt as certain public sector entities engage in loan financing, for example, the Port Authority with respect to the cruise pier, and that will impact the total public sector debt. The aim is that we always keep it below the target of 60%. And we, as a central government, would lead the way. And that is why we have set ourselves the target of getting at 19.5%, up from 20-odd+% for the central government. By the end of 2020, the debt to GDP ratio is expected to decline to 54.6 and continue the downward trajectory to stand at 49.7 in 2021 and 45.1 in 2020. This would be remarkable and historic. Never again will we go a-begging to the IMF. Never again will we become a pariah in the international community. Not once we have a team unity administration. I want now, Mr. Speaker, to turn to the fiscal prospects for 2020 and to report that for 2020 we are projecting recurrent revenue of $821.1 million. Taxes and income are expected to generate $150.4 million, which would be higher than that were estimated in 2019, 12% up. So we are expecting more successful businesses, and as a result, businesses are able to pay their corporate taxes and levies, so that we are predicting 2020 a higher income coming from taxes and income. Taxes on property should reach $15.3 million. Taxes on domestic goods and consumption would be $100.4 million. Taxes on international trade, the largest subcategory of tax revenue, would generate $198.7 million. Additionally, we expect $25 million for capital grants and $10.2 million for budgetary grants. All of these sources of revenue should bring total revenue and grants to 856.3 million. On the expenditure side, we have 617.3 million that is proposed for recurrent expenditure in 2020, a mere 4.3% over 2019. So we are anticipating in 2020 a recurrent account surplus of 200.3.8 million for 2020, and that should go to help us with our capital expenditure of 192 million. An overall surplus then can be realized of 47 million, and a primary surplus of 66.9 million are anticipated for 2020. The 2020 draft estimates provide the details on the various programs, projects, and activities that would be carried out by the line ministries. The general public can therefore look forward with much hope and expectation that we will deliver more public goods and services in 2020. Based on the respective plans presented and proposed budget allocations, which we have gone through before, I would just want to highlight one or two of the ministries' allocations again, and some of what we can expect to see, and leave it for the various line ministers to get more into the details of the provisions for their ministry. The Ministry of Justice and Legal Affairs et al. Has been allocated $13.3 million to support its activities on the recurrent account. Mr. Speaker, this ministry is really a cross-cutting ministry in that it provides services to all ministries and departments of the government. It is a very critical one in the orderly management of the government. And so we have upped the resources over last year that we have provided to this particular ministry. Mr. Speaker, you would be aware that we need a responsive justice system. And in that regard, we have recently acted on this commitment by replacing the Court of Justice Fees Act, which was first passed way back in 1880 with the introduction of a new legislation, the Court of Justice Fees Act 2019. The new law allows for the payment of court fees electronically rather than through the traditional use of stamps only. From this time forward, persons interacting with the court system would realize the marked difference and ease of conducting their individual business with the court. And I gather part of the reason for bringing this online is that the funds will go to the OECS coordinating mechanism for justice, and then they will do the necessary adjustment in restoring to each member states under the rubric of the court their fair share in that regard. Another important initiative which I'm sure the Attorney General will elucidate on will be the matter of e-litigation. This is a new method of filing civil and Court of Appeal matters, which should have taken effect from September 2019. What this does is that the paper-based filings will no longer be accepted, and stamps will no longer be used as payment, as this will now be done online. The progressive momentum of the court system is also being evidenced by the rollout of the ECSC's sentencing guidelines, which these guidelines were launched simultaneously, I'm told, across the OECS countries. These guidelines will enhance the quality of decisions made by our magistrates and judges and ensure consistency in approach, promote transparency and confidence in decision-making, and improve the way judgments are being administered and delivered. Mr. Speaker, we have had some significant benefits as a result of the separation of the land registry, which we did in 2017. I'm advised that since January to September 2019, a total of 3,848 certificates of titles and other documents were processed in St. Kitts and approximately 1,810 in Nevis. This certainly has made a significant difference to doing business in St. Kitts and Nevis. Mr. Speaker, turning to the Office of the Prime Minister, we have been allocated 44.7 million for recurrent, the same as in 2019. The office will continue to implement various reform initiatives aimed at improving the efficiency and responsiveness of the government. The Human Resource Management Department is an important subject in the Office of the Prime Minister, and they will continue to develop and implement programs to build capacity in the public service at all levels. Of course, a critical component is the work to operationalize the defined contribution pension plan, which would be finalized and implemented in 2020. Mr. Speaker, resources have also been provided to support our very successful CBI program, which continues to be ranked best in the region and indeed one of the best in the industry worldwide. Our platinum brand is considered the most attractive, and it is demonstrated by the confidence of our clients and agents. Our due diligence processes remain robust and unwavering, a view that is supported by the near-perfect ranking that was published in the Financial Times CBI Index. As we continuously seek ways to enhance our program, a new biometric feature is being considered for implementation in 2020 as part of our identity validation process. This will ensure that only persons of highest character are considered for economic citizenship in St. Kitts and Nevis. Additionally, we will reap the benefits of new marketing expertise contracted to guide the forward development of our program, which is strong and due diligence, strong and integrity, and strong and timely delivery. 7.9 million is being proposed for capital expenditure in 2020. These funds will facilitate the renovation of government headquarters, the continuation of the Hurricane Assistance Program, and several constituency empowerment initiatives. Turning to the Ministry of National Security, our efforts so far have helped us build safer streets and communities. Again, I am happy to report that major crimes in the Federation continue to go downward. In this regard, major crimes have fallen by a significant 27% over the period January to December 7, 2019, compared to the similar period in 2018. Most importantly, homicides in the Federation have fallen most dramatically by 48%. So you could feel the difference. For that we say, to God we give the glory. The budget for fiscal year 2020 proposes that 63.5 million be allocated for recurrent activities. This would represent an increase of 5% over 2019. In addition to the allocation for recurrent programs, the proposed 2020 allocation of capital expenditure is being pegged at $35.7 million. So that's where we get the $99 million that we are going to pump next year into national security. Safety always must be at the highest standard. And we are going to hold Mr. Brandy to account. We are going to hold Mr. Garrett to account. We are going to hold the Lieutenant Colonel Comrie to account. We are going to hold the Commissioner James to account. All, and the director at NEMA, because all of those are part of the national security mechanism. And of course, Mrs. Hughes and she is celebrating some 40 years in law enforcement. Let's give her, yes, a round of applause and salute her. She has really broken the glass ceiling, being the first female to reach the highest rank in our police force at ACP, and then to be given the chance to head the Immigration Service Department, which she welcomed, and she has thanked us for the confidence that we have given to her over these years. So she can end her career as the head of one of the security institutions. She's doing an excellent job, and we commend her and thank her. So are all the other leaders. We now have the right fit. I have spent some time, Mr. Speaker, on the Explorers Youth, and included in the capital expenditure will be funds for the building of the Explorers campsite and headquarters in Phillips Village. This has already started, and so we are providing additional funds to bring this to conclusion. So it's capital plus recurrent, which brings the total to a whopping 99 million. Mr. Speaker, substantial investment in infrastructure remains a critical element in keeping our people safe. To further address safety in our nation, in 2020, we will see the expansion of our CCTV surveillance system in Nevis and in the rural parts of St. Kitts. Indeed, we have already expended substantial sums to fast-track the delivery of supplies, so we anticipate that things would move very quickly in terms of the build-out. It is well known that we have invested significantly in a modern police station at Sandy Point, and the facility there, when built out, will also accommodate the fire and rescue services, customs and excise, and a magistrate court will be provided there. So we are doing significant work in Sandy Point in the broad ambit of law and order. Equally, Mr. Speaker, we are going to do some infrastructural work at the fire hall at the Vance Amory International Airport. This had been neglected for a very long time, and so the Team Unity government has been addressing this particular facility. Of course, our SSU will experience the comfort when early next year they take up residence in their new beautiful headquarters in upscale Fort Lands. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of International Trade, et al., would be provided with $4.5 million to carry out recurrent programs. This represents a 12.5% increase over the 2019 allocation. And there is significant work that is being pursued by that ministry, including work in the arena of trade, including preserving existing preferential trade terms with the United Kingdom in the context of a post-Brexit scenario in the UK. Another important area in which the ministry will be involved relates to the St. Kitts and Nevis Bureau of Standards, which will focus its efforts on building its capacity to provide scientific evidence required in support of the maintenance of health and safety and access to high-quality products, and the provision, of course, of other services in weights and measures to ensure accuracy in supply. So we are going to look after the consumer and ensure that the Bureau is put in a position where it can respond. Respond in the testing of water, respond in the testing of the quality in any area, respond in providing support for our public and private sector entities when called upon to do so. The Ministry of Finance, Mr. Speaker, would be allocated $215.5 million. The main activity contributing to the proposed growth is an additional $15 million increase, an additional $15 million in the budgetary support being allocated to the Nevis Island Administration, moving the amount of support from $30 million to $45 million in 2020. The other areas that would be provided for are retiring benefits and debt interests, which are projected at $40 million and $19.8 million respectively. This ministry will also be provided with $15 million for electricity consumption across the government. In other words, the Ministry of Finance services a broad range of ministries, a broad range of consumption activities for the government as a whole. So electricity, for example, and yes, the government does pay for the use of electricity on our hard courts and our streets, in our government building, and the Ministry of Finance provides for that kind of payment, coordinated as it does with respect to our government insurance program. Additionally, the Ministry of Finance has taken on supervision of a number of projects to ensure tighter control, such as those related to the rehabilitation of certain government buildings. And they would work with government buildings, with the ministry, well, our Chief Personnel Officer's office, and of course the government printry. They are doing collaboration with respect to the digital transformation project with the Ministry of Legal Affairs and Communications. So again, this is part of the facilitation and the joint efforts. Turning to social services, community development, and gender affairs, $34.1 million has been provided for recurrent expenditure. In 2020, we will maintain the vital support for households under the Life Enhancing Poverty Alleviation Program, and we have spoken about that. Oh, this assistance has come in such a way that it facilitates a better quality of life. It gives our grandmother in the homes now a sense of independence, not having to wait on one of the daughter or granddaughters to be able to provide a stipend. It allows the head of the household now to pay his or her electricity bill, his or her water bill. We heard the astronomical levels at which they were increased in a past dispensation, and we will not go back there. We are not going to cry. The Ministry of Social Services, Community Development, and Gender Affairs has been provided with $34.1 million for recurrent expenditure. And then their capital program of $3.6 million will also allow them to be able to bring to completion the community center, multipurpose community center at Lodge Atlas. Again, on this one, we want to thank the Republic of China, Taiwan, for its support to this particular project. Agriculture, Mr. Speaker, we had gone through that before, where that particular ministry is being allocated $10.9 for its recurrent activities, representing a 7.7% increase over that in 2019. The degree of success we achieve in building the agricultural sector certainly will influence our prospects for economic growth and our achievements in food security. Mr. Speaker, we are going to invest further in the amblyoma tick infestation resolution of that particular program, and the Minister of Agriculture has already announced that we will make Betical available to assist at the most affordable rate. Indeed, we are intended for the first few months of 2019 to make Betical available free of cost to the farmers. In addition to the recurrent expenditure, it is proposed that $5 million be allocated for capital projects by that ministry. Included among those projects would be the completion of the vet diagnostic lab, the rehabilitation work at the breakwater at Old Road Fisheries Complex, the upgrade of small farmers' machinery pool, the expansion of the Barstay Abattoir, and of course the improvement in fisheries management across the island. We have also provided $750,000 under a pest control program to assist in protecting our crops from pests, Mr. Speaker. We have provided for the National Health Insurance Scheme, and we spoke to that earlier. And of course, we want to commend the University of the West Indies and our own local committee that have been working together to advance national health care in St. Kitts and Nevis. When this would have happened, the lady at Old Morn in Birdrock, and I hope she's listening, because she reminds me of this, is a major initiative for which she voted for the member for St. Christopher 1. And she promised me she will vote for you again. So after, you must remind me to give you her name so that you could update her with respect to this one. The fisherman, of course, from Old Road, and the student in Phillips Village will be assured that in the event of illness, their health needs will be taken care of. Mr. Speaker, in 2020, the Ministry of Tourism will be allocated $25.1 million for its recurrent programs. The tourism sector is one of the most notable areas where my team Unity government has made a difference, and everyone confesses to this. The increased support for the work of the Ministry of Tourism and the Tourism Authority would go a long way in advancing the implementation of planned strategic interventions. And we want to commend the team from the Ministry of Tourism, headed by the member for St. Christopher 4. The historic achievement in that area, including the designation of the Marquis Port status 2 years in a row, are all part of a wide list of accolades which the Minister of Tourism will take us to later in the debate. With respect to capital expenditure, we are proposing $10.1 million in 2020. The capital projects to be implemented by the Ministry of Tourism would include the Coastal Erosion Mitigation Project, the South Frigate Bay Beach Enhancement Project, and the support for the Eco Park project. In addition to these projects, funds would be provided to support airlift into the Federation. And earlier I spoke to the fact that we were seeing significant increases in airlift into the country. Mr. Speaker, the provision of public infrastructure is important to the development of any country, and St. Kitts and Nevis is no exception. This is an area in which my government is making a difference in the lives of our people and in attracting new businesses and new investments. Under this ministry, we have provided recurrent funds for recurrent activities, $21.9 million. This represents a 2.4% increase over last year. This ministry, of course, has been a very active one, and we expect that it will continue to be very active. It has a capital expenditure of $61.7 million. This, of course, must be spent prudently and will be. During 2020, we anticipate the completion of Phase 2 of the Island Main Road, the rehabilitation of the Old Road Bay Road, and the road improvement project, which includes the construction of roads at Garvey's Westland Housing Development and Matinley. Significant activities are going to continue under the careful management of the Team Unity administration. The Ministry of Education would be provided with $74.7 million in 2020 for its recurrent programs and activities. The ministry would also be provided with a capital budget of $15.3 million. We have spoken earlier about the reforms that were happening in education, in curriculum, in support for training and development, and in all other areas. The ministry, in collaboration with SIDEMA, is implementing a Model Safe School program, an initiative designed to enhance capacity and mainstreaming comprehensive risks and disaster management consideration in the education sector. All of these activities have been given budgetary support. The Ministry of Health would be provided with $55.5 million to support its recurrent activities and $6.5 million to support capital expenditure. Included in the capital expenditure budget will be funds for the provision of a modern health facility for the people of St. Peter's, thanks to the involvement of our minister, the honorable member for number 8. We have also provided support for the build-out of the spectrum sector, which is an area which has garnered international attention as we attempt to provide support to differently abled children in our community. On the capital side, work would continue at the Joseph and France Hospital with the establishment of the first ever cardiac laboratory at the JNF. First time, we'll be setting up a center to deal, put it in local parlance, people who suffer from heart problems. You have heart attack, you need a first response, emergency care for the first time. That will be provided at the JNF Hospital. We are advancing healthcare. And importantly, I want to commend one of our nationals who has a sophisticated facility in the USA, came home to St. Kitts, and as part of his legacy is spearheading efforts to deal with the establishment of a cardiac facility at our main hospital. The country has never seen better than when it elected Team Unity, and we are grateful for the support of the country. The Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture has been provided with $8.7 million for its recurrent programs, Mr. Speaker. This is an increase over the previous year's provision. $7 million has been allocated for the implementation of capital projects. Some of these, of course, will involve the development of Trinity and Boyd's, the Tabernacle Playfield, the upgrade of the Sandy Point recreational grounds. Other projects would involve the upgrade of the Connery playing field, and of course the upgrade of the Kim Collins Athletic Stadium. We are doing quite a bit, Mr. Speaker. We have been, and we continue to do so. In relation to the Ministry of Sustainable Development, it has been allocated $6.5 million for recurrent programs and activities. Additionally, $12.7 would be provided for capital infrastructure. Some of these, such as the street lighting project, cuts across ministry, but the coordination of them is being done through the Ministry of Sustainable Development, and we want to thank the leadership of that ministry for that support. We spoke earlier about the street lighting project and other projects that are going to be built out. The Ministry of Sustainable Development is a critical part of the talented pool that have led to the operationalization of these projects. Turning to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Aviation, the allocation has been increased to 19.2 for recurrent programs and activities and 1.4 for capital expenditure. The ministry will continue to deliver on its mandate and would seek to expand our partnership with friendly governments around the world. The work of this ministry is invaluable as it relates to the increase in the number of countries to which St. Kitts and Nevis now has visa-free entry. Of course, this is very, very important development. The ministry will continue the work of preparing and consolidating the friendly relationship that we had with the government of Canada before 2014, when the former administration had so mismanaged the country, undermined the reputation of the country with an important partner such as Canada, that we lost our visa-free access. And we now have to spend significant sums, Mr. Speaker, to be able to access visas. Thanks for the intervention of our Minister of Foreign Affairs. We have now, as a result of the rebuilding of the trust with the government of Canada, been able to have the Canadian itinerant biometrics collection exercise being performed here. And so far, 230 residents and citizens have been able to access that service, Mr. Speaker. Thanks to Team Unity, things are happening, and more things will happen that benefit the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. And that is why we are assured that that horrible past from which the people came, they will not go back to that. And we will remind them of that past throughout the course of this debate. Mr. Speaker, the Office of the Attorney General has been provided with $12.6 million for its recurrent program and $1.3 million for the capital expenditure. And the Ministry of Nevis Affairs, Labor, Social Security et al. Has been provided with $1.9 million for recurrent expenditure and an additional $1.5 for capital expenditure. Mr. Speaker, it is clear that the Team Unity administration has done very well in a very short space of time. 5 years versus 20 years. And if Rockefeller, the Calypsonian, is to believe, 5 is much more than 20. We are ready to do more to move St. Kitts and Nevis forward. As we look towards building a stronger and safer St. Kitts and Nevis, we commit to provide more support for our housing programs. Already, 562 persons have benefited from the first homeowners program over the last 5 years or so of Team Unity. We recognize decent and affordable housing as one of the felt needs of our people, and we will continue to create innovative avenues to fulfill this need. Under this program, persons who are going to build for the first time will get a full range of concession that reduces the cost of their construction activity. We intend next year to make $30 million available to spur housing construction at a low cost, low interest cost. Building a stronger and safer St. Kitts and Nevis also required sustained support for small and medium-sized enterprise development. This is an area where we will continue to provide much-needed support so that our young persons can be given the opportunity to start new businesses or expand their small businesses. Building on the experience of the Fresh Start program, my government will launch another low-cost financing program to help the small people there. Mr. Speaker, Team Unity, of course, is not only just dealing with the prosperity agenda. We are dealing with our good governance agenda. The good governance agenda contemplates the idea that the state will conduct its processes and the business of governance in an atmosphere that strives to be transparent, just and fair, while at the same time respecting the rights of the individuals. These rights may embrace the right to be kept abreast about matters fundamentally affecting their livelihood, the way the state is managed, the right to privacy, or, of course, the right to approach the courts in the event that there is a fundamental breach of one of the rights, Mr. Speaker. And so we will continue to build out our good governance agenda. So far, our successes include regular meetings of the National Assembly, legislation specifying time frames for the motion of no confidence, lest we forget the failure of the last administration to table and to have debate on a motion of no confidence led to the creation of a book, 26 months of election. We have also passed the Public Accounts Committee Act, the Data Protection Act, the Freedom of Information Act. We have advanced the Integrity in Public Life agenda by the appointment of a commission, and we have provided funding for its operation. 20 years before our time, nothing had been done to advance that. So if you want to compare, Mr. Speaker, 20 with 5, our record far outshines. We have also operationalized the Procurement and Contract Administration Act. So we are proud of our record, even as we remain aware that much more work has to be done in our second term as we strive to make St. Kitts and Nevis the model of the best managed small island development states. Mr. Speaker, we have covered a lot of ground over the past year to develop public policy surrounding the use of marijuana in the Federation. The Drugs Amendment Act of 2019 has directly addressed the issues of unconstitutionality raised by the court. In that connection, the Act now reflects the views of the court in relation to the constitutional rights and obligations of our people. The Act is intended to be a very first step in a complex process to properly strike a balance within our society and to continue making laws that promote peace, order, and good governance. And the Attorney General will speak more in relation to this. Just to say in all this, our people will be at the heart of what we attempted to do. We will not go and bring anyone to the country and have them disrespect our people at our airports, disrespect our court system, disrespect the workers at our hotels and at the U-Lounge. That pattern of behavior is something we will raise again and again because it reminds us that if we are not careful, we will go back to that arrogance of the past. Mr. Speaker, I wholeheartedly recommend to the Honorable House our proposals for funding the activities in 2020. For another time, a fifth time in a row, the Team Unity government has not introduced one new tax. Indeed, over the course of our life, we have removed tax, VAT and food and funeral expenses, educational supplies, because we were of the view that it was nigh heartless for government to tax persons not only in life, but to tax during death. And that is why we remove some of those taxes. We, however, encourage our taxpayers to make their contribution to the development of our country by complying with the requirements to pay the relevant taxes, and you must pay on time. On the recurrent side, we believe that every dollar proposed for expenditure, particularly on our social services, education and healthcare, would be money well spent. We are proposing one of the highest levels of capital expenditure in 2020, which would help us to satisfactorily complete some of the major projects started in 2018 and 2019, such as the Old Road Bay projects, the Old Road Fisheries project, such as the community center, and of course we have added new ones like the health facility for the people in St. Peter's. Mr. Speaker, 2020 looks bright. In addition to the public sector investment, the planned private sector developments are set to boost growth in the economy. I especially applaud the plans by TDC to implement the TDC Dewars Garden project, a new housing development being facilitated with the purchase of land for the government in West Barstow. Over the years, TDC has been known for implementing quality developments, and therefore we look forward to the full build-out of this new project. Many more opportunities abound, and more room is available for more of our nationals and our businesses to step up and to help St. Kitts and Nevis move forward. We commend several other projects that have been proposed by our national. We take note of a new marina and residential development being proposed for Southeast Frigate Bay area. We take note of the construction of a high-end property development in the Southeast Peninsula. And we take note of the proposal being processed now for the construction of the hotel, another hotel in northeastern area of St. Kitts. All of these projects, Mr. Speaker, have come from the sons and daughters of St. Kitts and Nevis. They have stepped forward to make investments in building a stronger federation. This is our land, and we must step forward to develop it for ourselves and the generations that will come after us. We shall work out a special suite of support to incentivize locals to invest more in this, the land of their birth. The incentive package will be broad and will include special prices and land to be used for hotel and hospitality projects and bringing development to the rural areas. Investment by our nationals are just as important to us as investment by foreign investors. We will ensure that there is a level playing field and our nationals have no real cause to feel disadvantaged. We are encouraged by the pace of construction at Hillsborough Suites and Residences. I want to commend the developer and this important project for the jobs, the wages and salaries which that project contributes to the economy. We are encouraged by the recent groundbreaking, signaling the imminent start of the Era Development Hotel at Brighton's estate. We are encouraged by the progress of Phase 1 at Seaview Gardens Hotel in West Barstow, and of course we anticipate the imminent opening of some 3 hotels in St. Kitts. Throughout 2019, we have continued our consultation with key groups in our society, including our private sector. We have maintained a healthy relationship with the Chamber of Industry and Commerce through regular meetings to discuss areas of mutual interest and active participation in several important committees, including but not limited to the Committee to consider issues related to LEAT, the Committee for the Review of Salaries for Parliamentarians, the National Sustainable Development Coordinating Committee, and the Marijuana Core Committee. We thank the Chamber and indeed all of the stakeholders with which we have interacted and consulted for their strong support over the years, and we look forward to continued collaboration as we seek to build a stronger and safer St. Kitts and Nevis. Yes, the future looks bright and encouraging. Team Unity is indeed delivering a better, safer, and more prosperous St. Kitts and Nevis. We have done so by eliminating harmful taxes on food and so on. We have done so without introducing any new taxes, a remarkable achievement that for 5 years in a row now we have not introduced one new tax, and our fiscal house remains strong and in surplus. Mr. Speaker, the future we are building is certainly not guaranteed, and we cannot assume that it will happen automatically. The sound financial management of the Team Unity administration has set St. Kitts and Nevis in the right direction, but there are many threats that can stop us from realizing our potential. As part of the global economy, we too can be impacted by slowdown. Internally, Mr. Speaker, it is imperative our economy continues to be managed in a focused, disciplined, and sound manner. Unfunded promises, reckless spending, unnecessary handouts that had been part of the rejected past all add up, and they lead to only one thing: high levels of unsustainable debt that will take us back to the IMF. Let us make no mistake, the biggest threat to St. Kitts and Nevis achieving a stronger and safer future is high unsustainable debt. And if we allow the debt level to increase uncontrollably again as it did under the Douglas administration, there will be no money to pay double salaries as we have done 4 years in a row. There will be no money to keep our streets and communities safe. There will be no money to build the bigger and better homes which the NHC is now doing. There will be no money for Fresh Start programs like Team Unity have introduced, and no money to create more jobs, and certainly no money to provide real opportunities for our young people. High debt certainly would drive away investment, tourists, and positive sentiments from our federation, and they would send us back, too far back in the past we have rejected on the 16th of February 2015. Should the public sector's debt rise to such high levels again, all the gains we have made over the last 5 years could be obliterated. So only a Team Unity government has the plan. Only a Team Unity government has the people and the policies to deliver that stronger, better, and safer future for all of us. Team Unity will continue delivering on its long-term plan. Its implementation will see our streets become safer, more homes being built. They will be bigger and better. More jobs will be created. More business licenses will be issued to spur local entrepreneurship and enterprise. We will see more hotels being built, and St. Kitts and Nevis will take on the leadership role in this post-modern world of ICTs. Our young people will be provided with new opportunities and more opportunities to fulfill their potential and make a meaningful contribution to our federation. We will continue to craft the necessary policies to expand our cultural and creative industries, which have a great potential for job and wealth creation. Our approach to the development of the creative industries includes opportunities for our young people who have an interest in the performing arts, in music, in visual arts, in audio and visual interactive media, design and sports. We will continue to invest in the build-out of our sporting facilities, as well as new facilities to support the performing audio and visual arts, so that more of our young people will shine and actualize their dreams. The gains we are making as a nation, Mr. Speaker, and the economic benefits we are delivering for our people, they need to be consolidated. Now is not the time to put our future at risk. No. St. Kitts and Nevis cannot afford to go back to the high indebtedness of the past. This budget will keep building a stronger, safer, and better future for all of us. In submitting the 20 budget for consideration, I pledge, and my team of ministers and members on this side of the House, we pledge our unwavering commitment to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. We will hold true to the mantra, to the cause. People first, always, by a team unity administration. Mr. Speaker, may this bill receive safe passage. I thank you.